My name is Andrew Welch, and today we're going to be breaking down the flashlight mechanics of a few different games. The truth is that adding a flashlight in Unreal is super easy, and I think sometimes this causes a lazy mechanic. You just grab a spotlight and attach it to a socket on the character's hand, so when the animation moves the hand, the flashlight moves with it. Some games see the player collecting batteries as a sort of ammunition for their light. First, we need a widget to represent our battery meter and the amount of batteries we're carrying. Next, a tick event that uses basic math to reduce the meter from 100 to 0. This occurs over a set amount of time so long as two things are true. First, the flashlight's current battery life must be above 0. Second, the player must have pressed the flashlight button to toggle it on. If the battery is drained, we wait until the player reloads the flashlight. Next, we use an anim notify to tell the battery meter to reset back to 100 once the animation has finished. Games like Halo or the aforementioned Alan Wake recharge their batteries automatically when not in use. This would be achieved by running the same draining tick event, only in reverse and with additional math to slow down the recharge rate. Some games that include this simple mechanic don't even need it to begin with, especially when you forget to design the levels with the flashlight in mind. Now, I would argue that Alan Wake is probably the most well known for its flashlight. It's basically the flashlight game, and it deserves that title as it does a lot with what could have otherwise been a very simple mechanic. First off, your enemies are powered by the darkness around them, and they're completely invulnerable until they become purified by the light.
Now, the darkness protects him from all harm.
Players can move their flashlight over the face of these enemies, causing the beam light to narrow, then eventually stun and cleanse the enemy so that they can be damaged. To do this, we would likely use a trace sphere by channel that checks to see if the center of the light ever crosses over the face of the enemy. The enemy would also need a separate collision box for their head so that the player can't blind them by just aiming at their feet. Once the connection is made, a countdown begins and narrows the beam over time. We have a boolean on the enemy like can be damaged, and when the time is up, we set it from false to true. We then play some particle effects, some sound effects, a stumbling animation, and then we call it a day. We should also consider the situation where if the beam moves off the enemy's face, the countdown begins to reverse. Another game that does this is Dead by Daylight, only instead of stunning an AI, the flashlight blinds an enemy player. Let's talk about Kirby and the Forgotten Land and why it has some of the best flashlight mechanics in a game. Each level featuring the item is specifically designed with it in mind. The first thing the light bulb does is limit Kirby's vertical movement by taking away his flying ability, meaning he can't just cheat his way through this maze. And of course the map has tons of pits with mostly linear paths that zigzag in every other direction, so walking in a straight line for too long is actually a death sentence.
But wait! There's more! Hang on to your seat, baby! Cause this one's a screamer!
Having your light on for too long will attract the attention of these enemies, causing them to ram directly into Kirby, damaging him or knocking him into the pit. Another thing this game does is turn the light bulb ability into a key for two different locks. The first one is the full charge, where the player simply lights up the panel until it triggers, locking it at a fully charged meter and activating whatever mechanism it's connected to. The other is the draining charge, where after fully charging the panel it slowly begins to drain, resetting the mechanism it just activated. Both of these are likely done using a sphere collision that spawns around Kirby when he's holding down the ability button. This sphere collision overlaps the panel's collision and tells an invisible meter to fill up from 0 to 100. Once the meter is full, the mechanism activates, and if the panel is a full charge, the meter stays at 100. However, if the panel is a draining charge, then the meter will use a tick event to slowly subtract a specified amount until it returns back to 0. In doing so, any moving platforms will use a timeline and interpolation to reverse their movement back to their original positions. All in all, when it comes to putting a flashlight in your game, remember that it doesn't have to be there for one purpose only. Utilizing a sphere trace with event dispatchers or interfaces can breathe new life into an otherwise pretty straightforward mechanic. My name is Andrew Welch, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.